Hello and welcome to my shack. I'm AJ8B, the DX Mentor, and welcome to this edition of the DX Mentor. Tonight we have a very special guest. We have Adrian, K08SCA, who recently returned from the Bouvet Island DXpedition. There's been a lot of questions that have surrounded that DXpedition, as it was one of the most highly anticipated DXpeditions that I've been aware of in years. So Adrian's here to answer some tough questions and give us some really good answers, and I hope you enjoy it.
K08SCA. Adrian's boy just kindly agreed to be with us and answer a few questions about the Bouvet DXpedition. And I will say up front, my hat's off to you, because you took on and the entire team took on something I wouldn't have done. I could not see me taking 2 months, spending the money, going there, activating, doing the whole, I just think that's terrific. I appreciate you doing that. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself before we get going?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be able to give our story on this difficult but exciting project. Well, I've been a ham for a long time, since I was 16. I initially had the call sign Yankee Oscar 8 Sierra Charlie Alpha. I'm currently Kilo Oscar 8 Sierra Charlie Alpha. After I moved to US and got my extra exam, I chose the vanity call that resembled the one that I had for the first time when I was a kid. And that brings nice memories. I still remember when I first listened to the first DX ever, the expedition to Albania, Zulu Alpha 1 Alpha, where Marty was behind it, and at that time didn't know what a DXpedition is. And one day I got the QSL card, went to the club, showed it to everybody, and usually, I'm the kid in the corner that nobody talks to. But at that moment, it was very quiet. Everybody impressed that I got such a QSL card. I didn't realize what it was, but that's when they told me what the expedition is, and I said to myself, this is exactly what I'm going to be doing one day, Of course, it took a long time to get there. I had to go to college, learn a little bit of how to survive and make a living, have a family. And then I moved to US, and I've got a job in IT, and that's what I've been doing all my life. And about maybe 10 years ago, I decided that it's time to go back to ham radio and starting to go on the expeditions. And since then, Bouvet, the expedition that I just concluded recently, was for me the expedition number 30.
Wow.
So I guess I'm living the dream in a way.
Yes. Good for you.
So as you reflect back over the last year, how do you feel overall about the Bouvet DXpedition?
Well, it was a project that took almost 3 years to prepare. So a lot of work in the background, a lot of things that you have to think about, prepare, think about, look for sponsors and look for solutions. And we even participated in a climbing course, and then the ice climbing course. I had to fly to Norway a few times to get involved quite a bit with the project. This is not the type of the expeditions I've done in the past, where you put some antennas in a bag and you fly to some destination, enjoy a little bit of the sun, and have pileups. This is totally different. So after 3 years of work behind the scene, and getting the chance to be on the most remote uninhabited place on Earth, and coming back home safely with no scratches, and live to tell the story, even enjoyed some pileups. Overall, I think I'm a pretty happy camper.
Okay. And I can't imagine to me, just the volume of work that you guys had to face down 3 years ago would have been enough to make a lot of folks just turn away. So hats off to that. If you knew now, or if you knew 3 years ago what you know now, what kind of changes might you have made, or what lessons were learned there?
Well, I don't think many things would change because our biggest enemy was the wind. So you can't really change that. I guess one thing that you could do is have more time at your disposal to sit around the island until the weather changes. But considering we've been away for 2 months from home, you ask yourself, well, how much longer should I take off from home for the expedition? In the end, a hobby. So it's hard to tell. Sometimes luck plays an important, let's say, facet of all this, and you can't really fight the weather. You just wait it out like all the sailors have been doing for generations. So not much, I would say.
Okay. What was the bigger surprise, the challenge of the landing area or the weather?
Well, first of all, the pleasant surprise was the camping site was a lot better than we expected. We didn't have to climb. We didn't have to climb the rock or climb the ice. So that was good. We expected the landing would be difficult. We all watched the landing solutions chosen by the previous successful expeditions, where they did it by boat, and you have the big surf right by the close by the beach. So then, if the weather is good, the surf is smaller, and then you have an easier landing. But that's not something that you can control unless you wait for good weather. Then, but we did have our consultant, Peter, who had, together with him, we prepared a backup option, which actually worked out better. And that's what we used to get on the island, using a buoy system and a rope. So, we used both the Zodiac and the rope system, and that, together formed our way of getting on the island. So there was no, like I said, big surprises. We expected that the wind is going to be bad, and that causes a big surf, and that makes the Zodiac or boat landing, easier or more difficult depending on the size of the surf.
So
Adrian, the picture that I saw of the Zodiac, excuse me, seemed to be narrow, but maybe that was the way that the picture was taken. So how many people could you accommodate on the Zodiac when you went in?
Well, first of all, there were 3 Zodiacs. There were 2 on the boat, which was slightly smaller but more maneuverable. And we had a larger one that we purchased and we brought with us. And that was bigger. And we could have there 5 people. And that's actually what the operator used to land on the island when the weather was good. The other 2 Zodiacs we used because they were smaller, more maneuverable. So then if the surf is larger, a good Zodiac driver could, use his skills to beat the surf and safely get on the beach. So it's a combination. It's not a solution that you could, that's all in one solution that you can use. You don't want to have too big of a Zodiac, because then it's hard to maneuver. Of course, a bigger Zodiac is better because then you move more stuff at a time.
Yes.
But in the same time, if you have too much stuff, including people at the one time when you go on to the beach, to land on the beach, then it will be more difficult to get that stuff out of the boat. So it's always a trade-off, and that's where the skills of people that know what they're doing have been used to help us get on Beauvais.
One of the guys I know who's a internationally known DXer, et cetera, he thought the idea of taking a consultant with you was brilliant, because it isn't you guys kind of figuring it out. It's like, okay, somebody who's been through this, he's able to, coach us on that. I think you said his name was Peter. I'm really wondering if some of the top tier expeditions going forward will consider including a guy. How valuable was he?
Well, he was at the center of our success. No wonder about it. We as a hams, we know about antennas, we know about radios, we know about pileups, but what we know on fighting the nature is more from the movies or something similar to what others are telling you. And that's okay for most of the expeditions that we go into. Now, Bouvet, it's something special. And the trade-off here of not knowing what you're doing is that you put your lives at risk. And as such, we hired this consultant. Like I said, his name is Peter, who's an expert. Basically, that's what he does for a living. Takes expeditions, usually scientific expeditions, to places that are difficult to land and help them bring people and equipment on the shore. He came up with most of the ideas and that helped us get on Bouvet. Also, he was the best to interface between us, the hands, and telling him what we want and converting that into real scenarios and talking them with our skipper of the boat and their crew. So this way, because what you want and what's possible and what's achievable and what's realistic and what's less of the risk could be different than reality. So as such, like I said, he was at the center of us getting on Bouvet, from designing the possible and the best scenario to driving the Zodiac to even teaching us how to put those survivor suits on, which is not easy feat. It looks very easy when you look in the movie, but all these together, it's knowledge that you cannot acquire by reading a book, and you cannot acquire by watching a YouTube video. And also, we wanted a person that not only consult us and says, okay, you do this and do that, that we wanted that person to actually come with us, so this way you kind of get a bit of self-assurance that whatever solution he's providing is actually doable, because he's the first one out there, in the battle. He's the first one that would go and drive the Zodiac, would tell us, okay, this is what you do, and you go step by step. So obviously for us, I don't think we could have gotten this done without a skillful person that knows what it's doing.
Well, it's clearly was a great idea. So one of the things that occurred to me is, and I know that 3 years ago there was a previous attempt and they came really, really close, but they didn't get there. So I'm sure as you started down this path, there were a lot of people saying, I don't know if I'll support these guys or not. But then over time, momentum built. But do you think there was too much, or the expectations were too high? I mean, you could have worked 100,000 people and people still might have been disappointed. So do you think that's been part of the challenge now that you're back, is that the expectations were, and I'm not saying you guys did it on purpose, but you also had to do your fundraising, right? So I'm just wondering, were the expectations so high that you couldn't deliver against it, or am I misreading that?
Well, obviously the main goal of advertising was to raise funds, because this is by far the most expensive the expedition ever, and that's because the boat is expensive. You can't go there with a little boat, and you cannot afford something that military would have. So, but in any case, a boat that can reach Bouvet safely and take you back safely, it's expensive. So we needed to raise a lot of funds, even though the expedition members put up quite a bit of funds to be able to join the expedition. So, but in addition to that, the idea behind us advertising a lot was to explain that this is not the expedition, to some nice island in the Pacific where, you just have to get there and make the QSO. This is very challenging. And the presentations that we did, including myself, we're basically explaining what our plan is, because obviously there are a lot of, if you're not an expert, look at this from the outside, unless you look at the details, you can't tell if this is a serious undertaking or it's just some guys that are dreaming. So, people had a lot of questions, how do you get there with a sailboat? That sounds crazy. Well, it turns out it was an excellent solution, because the price of a sailboat is lower. We saved a lot of money by pushing the vessel with the wind, and in addition, these people that own the owner of the boat was also the skipper of the boat, and that's important, because this way, if there's a decision to be made, he doesn't have to call somebody that owns the boat and say, hey, you can go this way or that way. So also gives you the so all these details basically are important to be given out to the public so they understand what the challenges are. People wanted to know, okay, how do you get this 7 tons of equipment up the cliff? Okay, so we explained that. We had a couple of solutions. The first solution, the backup, and so forth. And people asking, okay, you're gonna get there. How is the antenna gonna survive on that wind? Well, you explained, well, we spoke to the manufacturer and we said we can't just get an antenna off the shelf. And Wemo and basically worked together also with the DX engineering, and they said, okay, we'll take this antenna, we'll put maybe a stronger material, we'll use better screws or whatever other materials to make it better. So all these things needed to be explained. The more advertising you have, the more people understand, and then they'll say, well, this kind of makes sense. And that's how we were pretty successful in raising the money that we needed to get there.
Okay. I've heard from a couple of folks that were on the previous 3-year ago DXpedition that your group never really consulted with them about lessons learned or what their recommendations were. I don't know that that's true or not, so I thought I'd give you an opportunity to talk about that.
That's actually totally not accurate. First of all, the team leader definitely consulting the people that were in previous DXpeditions, but I myself can tell you half of that 3 Yankee Zulu 0 Zulu team is close friends of mine. Not only did I speak to them, I visited their homes and we discussed in details. Hey, what do you think? How did you do it? What did you do this way? Do you think, mostly the questions that you're asking me right now are the questions that I asked them. I wanted to know, okay, if you had to go back, what would you do better? What do you think about this solution or that solution? That's why preparations for this type of project is almost 3 years, because it's not an easy answer for any question that you might have. Like even our toilet, it's very easy. Go get a plastic bucket and just use it. That's not the way it works. When the wind is 60 miles an hour and you're told that when you leave the island, you have to take all the human waste with you. That's already a challenge. A couple of us in a team actually had just this challenge to work on it for months and months at a time to find a solution that works, and it did. So we've got a lot of input, and we borrowed a lot of their solutions and adjusted some other ones that didn't work. So definitely. It's not accurate that we didn't consult them.
Okay, fair enough. One thing I'm technically curious about is I know you had an FT8 glitch early on, and I was just curious looking back, did you at least have GPS coverage? How did you solve it?
Well, the first question that I asked the people that were in 3 Yankee 0 Zulu, I said, well, the satellite phone that actually worked there, did it work? Because there's, Bouvet is not in the shipping lanes, normal shipping lanes. So it might not be coverage for the satellite. So I was concerned about, first of all, regarding having a satellite phone that would work. And secondly, a GPS module to use for FT8. So actually, not only we were told that the satellite phone works, we actually had the satellite phone that 3 Yankee 0 Zulu had it with them. My friend Glenn, Whiskey 0 Golf Juliet, loaned us his satellite phone that he used in 3 Yankee 0 Zulu. So that phone worked, and our GPS device that we had for FT8 also worked fine. Now, what happened? Why didn't we use it? Well, we got to Bouvet and we waited for good weather. We found a good weather window. A scouting team went on shore. They stayed there for about 4 days. When they came back, we set up a strategy and we said, well, the surface is really bad. We can wait for better weather, or we can use a scenario that's using less radios. If you look at our website, we actually published this well in advance. We have 4 different scenarios there where we go in with 12 radios or things don't work out, we try with 8 radios. If that doesn't work, we try 4 radios. We try then with 2 radios. So we said, okay, let's try the 2 radios and the minimum possible equipment. We're gonna take no desks, no chairs, no GPS device. We're just gonna go and do a CW and SSB. And then, 2, 3, 4 days later, when the weather gets better, we'll bring more stuff from the boat. We'll bring more radios. We'll bring FT8 system to do FT8 and so forth. But the weather was not good. So, after 2, 3 days of waiting for good weather, the 4th day we said, you know what, let's try to figure something out. So we did get on FT8. Our clock was not synchronized because we didn't have our GPS device. Some people figured out how to do it, and we did manage about 3,000 FT8 contacts with the clock slow about 14 seconds. So after that, we said, you know what, let's see if we can figure out a solution without our GPS device. So what we did, we actually used the satellite phone and looking at its time, which we know it's accurate because it gets a signal from satellite. We manually got it down to maybe, I think it was about 3 seconds. And at that time, at that point, we used the JT Sync software to get it accurate to the second. So and so after that, the FT was in sync. But at that point, we still already made about 3,000 QSOs. So we did have all the equipment, but we didn't expect that the weather didn't allow us to get on a boat to get everything for our second stage.
Wow. Okay. The other touchy subject, and you said you're not happy, but you're willing to address anything. I've heard from several folks about some of the hams that were on the boat were operating 3Y0J remotely, which is certainly legal. I mean, there's no issue about that, but the issue is with the pilots sending out saying, hey, look, if you've already got them in the log, then don't work them. And if you don't, hey, go after it as best you can. But it seemed to be certain members would have 2 or 3 or 4 QSOs with the guys on the island. So it's another one. I thought I'd throw it out there and just see what your thoughts were.
I don't know the exact details of what was said to the pilots to go out there, but from my understanding, the idea was it was maybe merely a suggestion to the ham radio community to avoid making a QSO in every possible band and do secure or duplicates just so that they're sure they're in the log. So I think those instructions they're more for people that did 10 QSOs, and most of them were obviously in the same band. But at the same time, from what we learned a few days later after getting on the air from Beauvais, was that the QRM was tremendous. And not only that, there were a lot of pirates, which that meant is people will say, well, since the QSOs are not being uploaded to the club log, how do I know, if I really made a QSO with a real Beauvais or some kind of pirate? So, people desperate for an all-time new one, obviously they were thinking, you know what, I'm not going to take any chances. And so they made a lot more QSOs than they should. But, probably some of those QSOs are made with pirate stations. So it's hard to blame anybody that made duplicate or triplicate QSOs in each band, So it's debatable. Obviously, people that managed to make QSOs with us are the happy campers, and the ones that badly wanted and they couldn't are, upset about it. So
Right.
it's just a matter of opinion in the end, it's
But I think the one thing that I'd heard was that the members of the DXpedition themselves were working the DXpedition on the island. And that's what kind of got people irritated. Is that kind of the?
Yes. There were several on the boat that worked the island remotely, and I think that's what got a lot of people ticked off.
Well, I can't speak in the name of others that did that, but I do have two QSOs in the log, and these were made by a friend from my station in New York, and which is certainly legal in the United States or North America, I should say.
Sure.
And they worked at the expedition the same like everybody else, not knowing if they worked to the real deal or not. Now, this is not allowed in every country, from what I understand. Norway or Germany have different rules, and this is not something that's allowed. And so the hams there, or the team members there, are in the log, are from all from North America for this reason. Again, this is the way I made the QSOs, or somebody else made it for me from my station in New York. It's perfectly legit QSOs. I didn't really need it, but I thought it was exciting that my station was able to make a QSO with the expedition.
You know, my initial thought after you went QRT was, I really got to get a beam up because I didn't even work the Pirates. So what I am curious about is, with the size of the Zodiac and all the equipment that you were going to take on, was the original plan that you would just have like shuttle missions with the Zodiacs to the beach? It just seems like a tremendous amount of equipment that y'all had to take.
Yes, that's why we prepared to do this in stages. Like I said, we had 4 stages. We sent the minimum equipment with 2 stations. We get those running, and while some operators start making QSOs, then the next Zodiac will bring more equipment, and then we start with we continue with 4 stations, and then 8 stations, and then 12 stations. So the plan was good. That it all depended on the weather, obviously. So you would want to do that, these shuttling, I could say, one after another, but it all depended on the weather. What happens is, you see, this weather windows that you need in order to shuttle people or equipment to the shore are not. You need a longer windows. So what happens is the weather on Bouvet would change very quickly. Sometimes we were laughing that you open the tent window and you say, "Oh, look at this! The weather is nice. Let me go and use the toilet." You go out. By the time you get to the toilet, it's already either raining or snowing, and the wind starts blowing. So um, the old sailor's adage that says, "If you don't like the weather, just wait a little," it actually matches this. So when it comes to the weather for landing, is slightly different than that, or more complicated, I should say. The idea is that we had, storms every 2 or 3 days. So the storm would last for maybe 6 or 8 hours or slightly longer. And then after the storm goes away, the impact on the waves is felt longer, the next 24 hours after the storm. You see the big waves coming, and after that, if you get another, so if the weather still stays good, the next 24 hours are when the waves are going down, the surf is going down, and now you have a good opportunity to use the Zodiac and bring more stuff on the shore. So it's not that you need a 2-hour weather window. You need the calm after the storm that you're going to be using to get equipment and more people on the shore.
Okay.
So how big a waves were they actually, Adrian?
Hard to tell. Maybe I would say at the time when we were there, maybe in an average 3 to 4 meters, and during the calm day, 4 meters. That's 10 to 12 feet.
Yes.
When the weather was calm. Obviously, if there was a storm, I think we went outside to take some pictures of how big the waves were. But when it's a storm, you can't really see much. So, but yeah, during a storm, you would see even bigger waves than that. The way actually we were able to tell how good the weather is from the point of view of the surf was by looking at the size of the beach. So when the weather is good, the beach was very wide. When the weather was bad, you would see the water coming very close to the glacier, making the beach very short, maybe 2-3 feet the most. Also, sorry, another telltale of the good or bad weather was watching the penguins or the seals. When the weather was about to be very bad, you will see the penguins walking from the beach up to the cliff where they had their colonies. You see the penguins going up. You say, okay, let's check to make sure the tent is solidly anchored, that we don't have anything that can fly. That's how you get ready for the storm. When you see the penguins going the other way towards the beach, you say, oh, that's good weather. Let's take some clothing out for drying, or let's do some more work on the antennas and so forth. So that's how you tell the weather on Bouvet.
Sure, thank you.
So now that you've had a chance to reflect, are you ready to go again?
Well, it was exciting adventure, but I think I would have liked to go again, but there are many factors, so it's not an easy yes or no answer. Because first of all, you have to be away from home for about 2 months, no matter how you take it. Secondly, those 2 or 3 years of preparations that you need up front, those take a toll on the family, because preparations means that you take an antenna, install it, uninstall it, put it back in, or do all these preparations that take time, that instead of spending your weekends with family, you would spend it in the garden, doing some testing or whatever, getting ready for the expedition. So that's another factor. And another factor is obviously the cost. Each member of the expedition spent at least $30,000 out of their pocket. It was $20,000 to join the expedition. Then you would spend a few good $1,000 to get clothing. You can't go on Bouvet, wear blue jeans and a t-shirt. So in addition to that, there, the inherent things that you have to do. In this case, this was a Norwegian the expedition, in the sense that was organized by in Norway, somewhere outside Oslo. So we had to make trips to Oslo to do some testing, prepare, loading the container. That's a lot of work. You have to fly, so money adds up quickly. So $30,000 for the expedition, no matter how much you like it, you like the pileups, it's not an easy way of shelling out this kind of money.
Yeah.
So
Now that you've seen the island and you've seen the winds and stuff, I have a friend who was really curious, is how would you address 40 to 160 meters? Because those antennas are so physically big, right? They require space. They'd have so much wind loading and stuff. I guess really the question might be, what were you going to do? And would that have changed your thoughts at all?
well, as I mentioned before, one of the pleasant surprises that we had was that the campsite was actually a lot better than we expected. Not only we were able to just go up the ladder about, I think it was about 10 feet. And then after that, you just walk on an incline, but still a walk. So that made it easy to carry the equipment once we were on the shore. Well, easy in a way, but doable, let's say. So once we got up to that area where we set up our camp, you can look around, and there are actually quite a few flat areas around that you could use for extra antennas. For 160, you could have used the farthest area to install the antenna, because the loss on the cable is the lowest. So you could have put a pretty large antenna, 160-meter antenna that way. We identified a few other areas there that could have been used for additional antennas. So from that point of view, I don't think it's a difficulty. Obviously, you cannot do this type of the expedition on a very small crew, because you have to constantly fix and repair stuff, and that includes large antennas. So I don't expect that 160-meter vertical on a spider pole, let's say, will survive for the whole time on the island. But these are easy to fix. You have extra poles, or you could easily fix some of the stuff. Or we also had as a backup aluminum 160 meter antennas provided by also DX Engineering. So we, you come with lots of backups. So stuff will break, you repair it. Stuff can be repaired, you replace it. So that's the way it is. That's why, you have 7 tons of equipment when you go to the expedition like that. You can't just take not think about the backups. But backups means that you get extra equipment, extra of everything, from fuel to food to wires and screws and equipment and radios and so forth.
Yeah, everything you can think of.
Sure.
With apologies to Marty Lane, because he's the first one I heard say this. So where do you go next?
Well, I promised my wife and friends that I'm going to stay put for a while. But my next escapade will be for WRTC in Italy. This is the so-called Ham Radio Olympics. And that will be the week of 4th of July in Bologna. So convinced my wife to join me. I think she was more convinced about the available wine and pasta. But the idea is that I'm trying to make it a holiday.
Yeah.
So I'll enjoy some nice pile-ups and meeting old friends from around the world. And I'll enjoy a little bit of Italian sunshine.
Well, good.
Adrian,
we'll
if you would have won it a month or two earlier, do you think
Well-
that would have made a big difference?
It's hard to tell, it's like looking at the weather in New York. Will the last snow be in March, or is it going to be beginning of May? You'll never know from one year to another. So in the end, I think one of the, let's say, success solutions for Bouvet is the ability to stay around the island for longer. So this way you can wait the weather. But you can't, there's the limit of how long you can be away from home. And if you come earlier, it's not going to make a difference. If you can come and stay longer, then that will make a difference. The Charles Brady, the astronaut, the American Navy that stayed on Bouvet for about 3 months. He was there actually performing the job as a doctor for the crew that was there on Bouvet. So they brought a container and they put it there on the beach, and he was there for 3 months. I think he intended to stay 2 months, and then the weather was bad, and they can only evacuate him 3 months later. So that's obviously a good solution. You go there and you say, whenever I can come back, I can come back. Well, how many people can say that? And you cannot be just one person. A team needs to go there so that you could do all the bands, put more antennas. Now you'll have to find 12 team members that can afford to stay on Bouvet for as long as it takes. That's, I think 2 months of our time was quite a bit of an effort for, in the end, a hobby. And the fact that we are again made the right decisions to be on the island, make QSOs, and also, more importantly, come back safely home with no scratches. I think that it's quite a bit of an effort thinking overall.
Sure. But to consider a helicopter, obviously you have to consider a different and a bigger boat.
Well, the helicopter is not a perfect solution because 3 Yankee 0 Zulu that entered in 2018, they basically did the same thing, waited for good weather and waited for good weather so that the helicopters can take off. Now, remember what I said in our case. Well, first of all, people landed on Bouvet, forever on the boat, so that we know that that's doable. So there's no question about it being doable. Of course, it's easier if a helicopter takes all your stuff and puts it where you want it. But as I said, this is not an answer for all possible scenarios, because you see, when our scouting team of 4 people went on the island, and the weather was acceptable, and then changed suddenly after a few hours of them being on the island. So on an acceptable weather, that means that what's acceptable for a Zodiac landing might be an impossibility for a helicopter, because you see the helicopter flies there very quickly, but if there's fog or not good visibility, the helicopter can't fly, and then you have a difficult solution, a difficult issue. Okay, let's say the helicopter takes let's say 3 people and some equipment on the island. So these people get there, and then the weather changes, and those 3 people stay there. What do? Well, you have to wait. But how long do you wait? Well, if the helicopter can't fly, you can only wait until the weather is good for a helicopter. And then what if that's longer? Those people get stranded there. You can't just leave it. So even if with a helicopter, you have to have a backup solution with the boat, because if it's, again, the weather could be good, but it's foggy. So then, a Zodiac might be a good way to get in. So I don't, I'm not an expert, but looking from and from what I spoke to others and what I saw with my own eyes, no solution is perfect. But I would say that a Zodiac solution with the ability to wait the weather is a better combination than with a helicopter solution. Now, the workers that do repair the weather station that's there on Bouvet, how do they get there? Well, lately they are being flown by helicopter. There's a big boat, that goes there, big vessel, and that vessel has helicopters, and then that vessel can stay there for days, weeks, months. Nobody, bothers them. They don't have to go back to work or back to family. Their job, they will sit there, wait the weather. So when you have that kind of luxury, then you wait, and then you go with the helicopter because it's a lot easier. So, but also it's the cost issue. A bigger boat requires more money. So
Sure.
So it's
Yeah.
all trade-offs and balances then.
yes, exactly. Then
Yeah.
nobody has the perfect solution. If they did, Bouvet wouldn't be the second most rarest DX entity, right?
Yes.
So in general, and I want to make sure I give you time to get your wife to dinner. So that's important for all of us tonight. Overall, it's not I think the general feeling is as positive as it could be, or we would have hoped it would have been. So how do you kind of just address that and say, hey, look, we made an effort, we took the time, we invested the money, and we've got 20,000 QSOs to show for it. So that's what we did. But so, I mean, is that a fair way to address it, or?
Well, you can say that, obviously, was it a failure? I don't think so. We got on the island and make QSOs. Did we make as many as we wanted? No, but in the same time, we could have pushed it a lot harder, and then you run into the risk of having injuries or something worse. And if that happens, nobody's going to be allowed on Bouvet anymore. So that's a trade-off there either. So it's, this is not a black and white situation where you say, oh, you should have done that or you should have done the other thing. Also, watching or looking at things from the outside is always very tricky in getting the right answers. Because in these type of situations, just like an airplane on a vessel, is the same way. Only the captain that's there, looking into his eyes, if he says, now it's safe to go, you go. If the captain says, no, we wait, no, it's not good weather, he's the only one that can tell you that's has the final decision, and he has the best background and experience to for you to take the safest decision for that particular project. So I would say that overall is a success. We could have done better, maybe, but if others are thinking that there is a better way, it's very easy to get to Bouvet, if you have the money and the time and the skills. So
So have at it, right?
yes,
I
exactly.
never thought about that, but I guess the alternative is if you force a situation and now somebody loses a foot or an arm because of frostbite, or God forbid they drown, and now they're saying, what were those guys thinking? Didn't they know there's no way they should? So I guess either way, you're in a bind.
Right. So it's like I said, we hired this consultant and we based our decisions on what the captain has to say and his decision, and we followed their advice, and everything worked well from the point of view of returning safely home. And I think in the end, this is more important than anything else, because like I said, if anything happens during the ham radio, the expedition, that entity, will never allow you back, or other groups, to go in and take the risk and let you do what another the expedition. We already have a hard time as hams reaching the American islands on the Pacific. We also have a hard time getting onto the French islands in the Indian Ocean, and that's why all these places are, top 15 and the entity list, because it's very hard to convince these, the authorities that are responsible for these places that we could do it safely. We could do it without, affecting the nature and the birds and, the fauna on those places. It's already hard to demonstrate. But if you go there asking for permission and they look behind and say, wow, look what happened with those guys 2 years ago or 3 years ago, then you're never going to get anywhere. So I think in the end, overall, I would call it a success.
Okay, fair enough. Joe, do you have anything else you'd like to ask or comment or?
No, I'd like to go with you for dinner, though.
Thank you. I promise to do so. And then maybe I'll have the courage to tell my wife that I'm thinking about another expedition in the fall.
Well, I really appreciate your time, and for those that are listening and watching, and just to be totally honest, you immediately agreed to answer questions. You said any question is fair game. You didn't filter anything. And my intent and Joe's intent wasn't to, beat anybody up or do undue praises. It was just, hey, we've heard some things that more than once, so please address it for us. And you've done that really well and fully, and that's all we could ask for. And I'm so appreciative that you did this with us. So, and I'm glad everyone's back safely. One of our club members was on there, so we're glad everybody got back safely. And and then I guess we'll see you at Dayton, I hope.
Yeah.
Yes, that's definitely Dayton will be happening. I'll be there in Dayton. Thanks for having me, and thanks for allowing me to tell the story as I saw it with my own eyes. And I tell any people that have any doubts or anything, ask the questions by asking them directly to the team. Well, there's no point of speculating or getting your news from somewhere else. Just ask the people in the team. They know better than anybody else because they've been there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, thank you very much for your
Yep.
time.
Thank you so
and
much.
We really appreciate it.
And
Well, 73 from New York.
73. Good night, my friend.
thanks a lot.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Wow, was that interesting or what? I just can't imagine being on that boat, 35-degree water, swells up to 10 and 12 feet. Really something. Hard for me to imagine. But I'd really like to thank Adrian, KO8SCA. He's home only a week or so, and he took time out to talk to us and answer our questions. And of course, I'd like to thank Joe, WAGEX, for being here and helping me put on this podcast. If you have any questions at all, you can contact me at thedxmentor@gmail.com. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know either way, and I'll see you in the pile-ups.